Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda, namanda, namanda. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's service, the last Sunday in August, and unofficially the last service during the summer season. And also, I'd like to thank you for driving through the smoke to come to the church this morning. First, I'd like to begin with opening meditation. So please join me in Gasho. To cease from evil, to cultivate good, to cleanse our own thoughts, to help others. These are the teachings of the Buddha. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda, namanda, namanda. First, we'll begin with the chanting of Junirai. Keshu tenin shokugyo Amida sen rozoku son Zai mi myo anrako Muryo bushi juinyu Konjiki shinjo nyosen o Shamata gyo nyozopu Romoku jo nyaku shorenge Koga chorai son menzen enjo nyoman gat iko yu nyosen nichi gat shonyo tenku kushira koga chorai mida son kanon chodai kan shuju shuju myo so shogun nobuku gedo makeoman Koga chorai mida son Mubi muku koshojo Shutoku keuketsu no koku Shosari yakutoku chizai Koga chorai mida son Chippo myomon sashu Muryo shomajo sandan Isho shujo ganrikiju 子が将来見出そう根体保険知性系前言少女名大座おいざ上女戦の子が将来見出そう自法将来勝負し権限人図し安楽戦後尊厳辱業子が将来見出そう小無常無我と薬尿水月伝よろ一種説法無明寺子が将来見出そう依存無説無悪名薬無尿になく道夫就任死心教非尊子が将来見出そう非尊無量法勉強無償修悪知識往生不退死亡大子が将来見出そう仮説非尊功徳寺修善無変妖怪水小逆前後少女者衛生修上小にこナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブがんにしく毒平等性際どん Namanda, 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 Namanda. Next, we'd like to do the chanting of the golden chain. Golden chain. I am a link in Amida's golden chain of love that stretches around the world. I will keep my link bright and strong. I will be kind and gentle to every living thing and protect all who are weaker than myself. I will think pure and beautiful thoughts, say pure and beautiful words, and do pure and beautiful deeds. May every link in Amida's golden chain of love be bright and strong, and may we all attain perfect peace. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda, 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 Namanda. Good morning again. You know, during my 40-plus years of marriage to Shirley, we have traveled to many places abroad together. However, prior to 2019, she and I have traveled to Japan 9 times, but never together. As a bucket list item, we decided that we would go to Japan together for 2 weeks in October 2019. Once there, we experienced the country's marvelous history, culture, fine arts, food, and music of our ancestral country. Our trip started in Tokyo. Then we moved on to the resort area of Hakone near Mount Fuji, Nagoya, Takayama, where they showed how the people lived 300-400 years ago, which was pretty interesting. Osaka, Himeji, which showcases Himeji Castle, and I found out is the very first registered UNESCO, or United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization World Heritage Site in Japan. Then on to Miyajima Island, Hiroshima, and finally Kyoto. I'm just curious, how many people have traveled to Japan? Okay, so, you know, I hope you had wonderful memories as I mentioned those locations. During our tour, we also experienced Typhoon Hagibis, which was the 3rd strongest super typhoon in recorded history. Imagine, if you will, 120 miles per hour winds and 30 inches of rain within a 1-week period, which was 150% more rain than the entire rainfall in Sacramento for 1 year. Shirley and I were thoroughly disappointed that we could not stay overnight at the Koyo-san Buddhist temple complex because of the foul weather. I was really looking forward to experiencing how the monks lived and ate. Oh well, as we all know, change from unforeseen circumstances will always be a part of our lives. Of all the places we visited, it was the tour of the Hiroshima Peace Memorial Museum that really had a profound effect on me. It was like deja vu all over again. When I had first visited this museum 41 years ago in 1978, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up again as I was walking through the museum and staring at all the horrific pictures taken in August of 1945. After I returned from Japan, I looked at a book I had purchased at the museum containing A-bomb drawings by the survivors. The museum had collected over 3,600 drawings from over 1,200 witnesses. Each drawing represented a persistent memory of the atomic bomb and evoked a searing image that the survivors had witnessed that fateful day. Among the hundreds of pictures in the book, I would like to share a few descriptions written by 3 survivors. Upon reflection upon these drawings, I will never be able to imagine the horror that they had witnessed. And so here are the 3 drawings. Number 1, entitled Burnt Bodies. My eye was caught by a fire-reddened streetcar. Inside and around the streetcar were people actually burned to charcoal, human charcoal. Number 2, giant furnace, the flash, heat rays. For an instant, it was like 70 students were thrown into a red-hot blast furnace. And number 3, flies. They used a streetcar rail for their pillow. The stench was overpowering. Torn straw mats were put up to shelter them from the sun. But tens of thousands of flies buzzed around and laid their eggs in the open wounds. I promised myself that one day I would do a Dharma talk about the atomic bomb and nuclear war. I just needed the appropriate time to do it. So we fast forward to 10 months later in August 2020, exactly 1 month or 1 year ago this month, in which Japan was commemorating in 2020 the 75th anniversary of the dropping of the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I was watching the NHK channel on TV. NHK, by the way, is the Japanese national broadcasting television station. NHK had aired a special about Susan Souther's book, Nagasaki, Life After Nuclear War. This book was published in 2015 and dedicated to the Hibakushas, or the atomic bomb survivors in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Susan Southard had spent 12 years interviewing the survivors, and from those interviews, her book covered the lives of 5 supervisors. And of those 5 individuals, I want to talk about the one person whom I found to be very inspirational to me. That man was Sumiteru Taneguchi, who lived until 2017 when he died at the age of 88. Mr. Taneguchi was only 16 years old and working as a postman when the atomic bomb detonated in Nagasaki. He was approximately 1 mile away at the time. He experienced the severest of burns on his back, arms, and legs. Mr. Taneguchi said that he felt something slippery on his back and reached around to feel his back. He discovered that his fingers were covered with charred, melted skin, black and slimy, like grease. The stench from the burned flesh was overpowering. Nurses had to constantly soak up the pus and decayed flesh on his back. Mr. Taneguchi also dealt with chronic diarrhea, loss of appetite, a weak pulse, and periodic fevers. He would lie on his stomach for 2 excruciating years and have countless skin grafts before his back finally healed. During his recovery, the pain was so great that It was his wish on several occasions to have someone just kill him to end his misery. As his back healed with scar tissues, the pain would stay with him forever. Mr. Taneguchi was finally released from the hospital after 3 years and 7 months. Because he was a survivor with a disfigured body, Mr. Taneguchi faced discrimination, grief, and cruelty for his entire life, including being rejected time and time again at marriage proposal meetings. It was so devastating that he contemplated suicide many times. Finally, realizing how grateful he was for surviving the atomic bomb, Mr. Taneguchi decided that his life's mission was to talk about the horrific suffering for himself and others, and to be that voice for those who had perished. He traveled the world as the ambassador for the Hibakshas, actively engaged in spreading the word to abolish all nuclear weapons and promoted peace among the nations before it was too late for humanity. As Mr. Taneguchi reflected upon his life, he was quoted as saying, and I paraphrase, "If you were to measure life with a ruler and an entire life was 30 centimeters long, 29.9 centimeters of my life was destroyed that day. Within that last 0.1 centimeter, I found the strength to live because I realized I had survived because of the support I received from so many people. My life is not just for myself. I now have to live for other people. Even though my life is excruciating, I feel that I have a responsibility to live my life to the very end in order to warn others of this unimaginable horror." And I suspect that based on these comments, that Mr. Taneguchi was a Buddhist. You know, I have often wondered, why were the atomic bombs dropped on Japan? Why did the United States government decide to drop the atomic bombs? Prior to those fateful days, the United States and Japan in total had occurred over 2 million military and civilian deaths and wounded. The battle on the tiny island of Okinawa had claimed over 250,000 dead. The United States government determined the invasion of Japan would add another year to the war. The estimated casualties for the United States for such an invasion would have been between 2 million to 4 million soldiers, including 500,000 to 1 million dead. It was estimated that with the Japanese military and civilian population fighting to the death to protect their homeland and their emperor, the casualty count would be between 5 million and 10 million dead. In order to avoid this catastrophe, President Truman ordered the atomic bombing of Japan. The destruction of Hiroshima and Nagasaki resulted in hundreds of thousands of deaths and untold suffering for the survivors. Were the atomic bombs justified, especially in the case of killing innocent civilians? For us Buddhists, there is no justification for the death and destruction caused by any war. On the creation of the atomic bombs and nuclear war, Robert Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb, responded, quote, "We have built an evil weapon, a most terrible weapon that has abruptly and profoundly changed the nature of this world. They are weapons of aggression, of surprise, and of ultimate terror. If they are ever used again, there will be devastation and destruction of our planet. The only hope for future's safety must lie on the collaboration based on confidence and good faith with the other peoples of the world. Today, 9 countries possess approximately 14,000 nuclear warheads. Each warhead is 20 times more powerful than the original atomic bomb. With the constant threat of Armageddon for our world, how do we Buddhists live during these frightening times? The Dharma teaches us to live in peace and harmony with others, always showing compassion by helping all living beings, and with this kindness, always being grateful for each living day. I would like to end today's message with the following words that I had heard from this year's National Memorial Day concert. Words that will inspire us to appreciate the gift of life every one of us has received. Please join me in Gassho. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with each of us. Let there be peace on earth, the place that was meant to be. Let us walk with our brothers and sisters together in harmony, and let us enjoy each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda, namanda. Next, please rise for the singing of Ondok-san 2, which should be on your Satan or service book on page 37. Now, please join me in Gassho as we have closing meditation. May the wisdom of the Buddha shine within our hearts and minds so that the mist of error and foolish vanity be dispelled. So shall we understand the changing nature of existence and reach spiritual peace. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda, 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 namanda. Okay, so this will conclude my portion of today's service. Next we will have announcements, and at the conclusion of the announcements, the service will end. So again, thank you for coming.